Part 1. The Uninvited Daughter. The Wyoming wind howled through the chapel courtyard like a grieving spirit as I stood alone by George's coffin. 53 chairs sat empty behind me. Not one child, not one grandchild. Just me in my black dress, the cold seeping through my stockings, wondering when family became a word without meaning. The funeral director cleared his throat twice. "Shall we wait a few more minutes, Mrs. Holloway?" "No," I said. George would have hated a delay. He was always punctual, even in his last days. Pills by the clock, evening news at 6 sharp. Slippers folded side by side before bed. A man of habit, a man of dignity. Now a man laid to rest while his children lived their lives elsewhere. Peter's text came that morning. "Sorry, Mom. Something came up. Can't make it." No explanation. No call. I imagined him on the 9th hole, his new driver glinting in the sun, while my husband was lowered into the earth. Celia's voicemail from 2 days prior still echoed in my ears. "Mom, I really can't cancel my nail appointment. You know how anxious I get with reschedules. Tell Dad I'll visit him next week." Next week? As if dead men wait. I walked alone behind the pallbearers. Didn't cry. Not because I wasn't grieving, I'd been grieving for months. But because there's a sorrow so deep, it sits motionless inside you like an anchor. The cemetery was nearly deserted. One old groundskeeper watched from a distance, hand resting on a spade. Dust met wood. Wind met silence. I stood long after they left, my heels sinking slightly into the earth. The temporary plaque read, "George Holloway, beloved husband, father, forgotten." That last word stuck like a stone in my shoe. Back home, the quiet roared. His recliner sat untouched, his slippers side by side, the TV remote where he last left it. I opened a bottle of good wine saved for guests and poured a glass. Then I did something I never do. Scrolled Instagram. Celia had posted 2 hours after the funeral. A picture of her and 3 girlfriends with cocktails, captioned, "Girls' brunch, bottomless mimosas, living our best lives." Peter posted his golf swing, killer swing, perfect weather, deals made. I turned off the phone, took another sip, and stared at our 40th anniversary photo on the wall. George and me beside the rose bushes he planted with his own hands. They used to bloom crimson. Now they were bare. Tomorrow, I thought, I'll call the lawyer. I'll make changes with the same dignity George lived with. Because if I was the only one to show up for his last goodbye, I'll be the only one to carry out his final wishes and theirs. Part 2. The Drawer of Truth. That evening I sat in George's study. The same room where he used to peel apples with surgeon-like precision, offering me the piece with the most sunshine. The fruit bowl sat untouched, pears sagging under their own weight. I opened the top drawer of his desk, still organized as he left it. Envelopes, spare keys, an old stamp book. But behind everything else I found the folder labeled Estate. Thin, neat, sealed with a rubber band. Inside were our wills from 2 years ago. Peter listed as co-beneficiary of the $300,000 investment account. Both children included in the house transfer clause. The lake cabin never visited, but always inquired about a tax time earmarked for them. My fingers trembled. Not from age, from betrayal's pulse in my ears. I walked to the hall closet and pulled out the canvas bin of old photos. Family reunions, birthdays. George holding sleeping Peter. Celia tugging my sleeve. We were once a family. Maybe love doesn't erode in storms. Maybe it fades like wallpaper in sunlight. Quietly until you no longer recognize the pattern. I picked up a photo of George and 12-year-old Peter fishing George's arm around him, pointing at something in the water, his smile full and soft. That man deserved more than an empty chapel. I put it down. Then I picked up the phone. Nearly midnight. I called Thomas Fields, our lawyer. Voicemail. Thomas, it's May Holloway. I need to revise my will urgently. Call me in the morning. I ended the call and stood by the window. The moon touched the rose bushes. They'd withered since George passed, not from neglect, but as if in sympathy. I should prune them, I thought. Give them room to bloom again, but not tonight. Tonight, I let the old petals fall. Tomorrow I begin cutting out what no longer belongs. Part 3, The Reckoning. The file cabinet in the hallway had 3 drawers labelled in George's block print: house, taxes, family. I opened family, folders upon folders, receipts, letters, old Christmas cards tucked between loan agreements. I'd kept everything not from obsession, but because paper doesn't lie. And that drawer had enough truth to light a forest fire. I sat at the kitchen table with the folders labelled Peter and Celia. Her folder first, $15,000 for her small wedding venue with chandeliers and lobster rolls. $7,800 when the baby's crib got soaked from her leaky roof. $12,000 for Ethan's braces. $5,000 for his robotics camp. $20,000 when her husband was laid off. You always save us, she'd whispered. We don't know what we'd do without you. I believed her. Peter's folder was thicker. $25,000, seed money for a sure thing startup that fizzled in 6 months. George warned me not to send it. A used car, a down payment, 3 semesters of grad school, hospital bills for his daughter's birth, insurance when his other broke her arm, tax payments, line after line. I wondered when I'd become their safety net. Not once did they refuse my help, but they refused to say goodbye to their father. And that was not something paper could fix. I kept only one thing from the cabinet, Ethan's envelope. Inside, a note. He wrote at 11, Grandma May, thank you for teaching me to make pancakes. I think you are very wise and funny. One day I will take care of you like you take care of me. He was 19 now. I didn't know if he remembered it, but I did. I'd meant to be fair, divide equally. But what if fairness wasn't sameness? What if it meant giving your legacy to the one who saw you, not as a bank, but as a human being? George used to say, legacy is not what you leave, it's who you leave it to. I used to think he meant financially. Now I knew he didn't. Part 4, The Dance. Ethan called that afternoon. Grandma, I heard about Grandpa. I'm sorry I didn't call sooner. I know, I said gently. I didn't know he passed until 2 days ago. Mum never told me. He arrived an hour later, taller than I remembered, smelling of clean laundry and stress. He hugged me, the way young people hug when unsure of welcome. I didn't pull away. We sat in the living room. He looked around like the house was both familiar and foreign. I missed his funeral, he said. I'll never forgive myself. You weren't the one who chose to miss it, I said. He looked at me sharply. Did Mum really not come? I nodded. She told me they had work, that it was handled. He stared at his glass. I should have known better. I want to do something, he said, sitting up. For him, for you, anything. You're doing it, I said. You're here. I hesitated, then brought the trust papers. Unsigned, unfiled, real. His eyes widened as he read. Grandma, why me? I could have listed their absences, their cruelties, their excuses. But I chose a different truth, because you're the only one who came back without being called. His eyes filled. He wiped them with his sleeve like when he was a boy. "If I come next weekend?" he asked at the door. "Could we make pancakes again?" I smiled. "We'll even use the good syrup." Celia arrived the next morning, black SUV crunching gravel too fast. She walked in like she owned the place. "I've been trying to reach you." I kept folding laundry. "I've been busy." "Busy with what?" I didn't answer. She poured water without asking. "Is it true? Ethan says you're changing your will?" "Yes." "Are you serious? After everything we've done for you? You didn't come to your father's funeral," I said. "I had an appointment. Your nails, then brunch. I saw the photos." She didn't deny it. "You sent me grocery lists, bills, school payments. I paid quietly without asking for anything. That's what family does." "No," I said softly. "That's what mothers do, and I did for years. Your father built this home with his bare hands. He taught you respect is measured in actions, not words. And you couldn't give him 2 hours for a goodbye." She left without another word. Peter came the day after, with Meredith, his wife in an expensive scarf. "We understand this is a difficult time," Meredith said. "Emotions run high. You didn't come to his funeral either. I had a client dinner. Very important deal, international." Peter tried. "Mum, I should have called. I didn't know how to..." "You thought if you ignored it long enough, it would become someone else's grief." Meredith stood. "This could get complicated legally." "It won't," I said. "The paperwork's clean. My lawyer's good. And I've had time to think." Peter looked older, thinner. "I thought you forgave people." "I do," I said. "But forgiveness doesn't mean access." They left. Only then did I feel the tremor in my hands. Not fear, release. Part 5. The Pie and the Note. Meredith returned alone a week later. No car, no Peter. Holding a store-bought apple pie. "I didn't come to ask for anything," she said in my kitchen. "I just heard what happened. What you told Peter about the trust." She clasped her hands tightly. "I wanted to say thank you." That startled me. "For what exactly?" "For not giving it to Peter," she said, eyes glassy. "He never learned to stand on his own. Grew up with everything handled for him. I kept up the illusion, but you enabling it didn't help either. And now it's just who he is." She looked down. "You were the one holding everything together while they complained about how you did it." "Why tell me this now?" I asked. "Because I'm tired too," she whispered. She sat. "I admired George. He was kind to me, even when he didn't have to be. And I never said thank you for everything you did. The help, the money, the constant." "You didn't owe me thanks," I said. "You owed him your presence when he left this world. And you didn't show." She didn't argue. Just reached into her purse and pulled out a worn photo Ethan at 5, sitting on my backyard swing. "He loves you," she said. "You know that, right? I hope someday he loves someone like that, and knows how rare it is." At the door, she paused. "Don't let them take your peace, May. They've taken enough." Then she was gone. I put the pie in the fridge not from sentiment, just because it would be good with tea tomorrow. Part 6. The First Snow. The legal papers arrived a week later. The trust was active. Ethan's name now lived on every deed, every account, every line where Peter and Celia's used to be. Not triumphant, not dramatic, just steady like a book, finally closed after sitting too long open. I took the envelope to the garden. The roses had surrendered to cold. George used to say they did it with dignity. Now I knew what he meant. There's a way to let go that doesn't look like defeat. I sat on the bench, fingers on the paper, It was real, not just grief or anger. It had settled into me, into the house, into the garden. I'd done what needed doing, and strangely, I felt something else too. Permission. Permission to start again with small things. That afternoon, I brought out the sewing machine, packed away, since before George got sick. I oiled the wheel, threaded the bobbin, made new curtains for the kitchen, bright blue with clumsy white stitching. They didn't match anything, but they were mine. Ethan arrived the next morning with groceries. Thought you might want something fresh. You want to learn how to make pancakes today? He grinned. Yeah, I do. We cooked together. I showed him how to flip without tearing, how to test the pan's heat. He listened, really listened. Not like Peter used to. Impatient, always looking for shortcuts. You're good at this, he said, biting into the first one. I've had time to practice. He poured more syrup. You know, I think this place could be something. The house. Yeah, not just keeping it, using it. For others. A space for people who don't have a place to go. A garden workshop. Teach people things. I felt something open inside me. Hope. Not loud, not desperate. The soft, patient kind. I think your grandfather would like that, I said. He nodded. Maybe I'll start with the porch. Needs fixing. You'll need real tools, not those college boy plastic kits. He laughed. Guess you'll have to teach me that too. Part 7. The new beginning. The first snow fell lightly, a whisper of white across the yard, the kind that doesn't stick yet, but tells you the season has changed. I watched from the back porch, coffee in hand. Ethan was out front, measuring the steps with a level, mumbling to himself like George used to. A month since I signed the papers. The world hadn't applauded, the sky hadn't opened, but something in me had shifted. The weight carried for decades was finally gone. What replaced it wasn't anger or victory, just space. I'd made room for something new. The kids hadn't called again. Celia sent one text. I hope you're proud of what you've done. I didn't respond. Peter's silence was deeper, a void that no longer asked to be filled. I didn't chase them. Let them tell their version. Let them paint me cold. I'd lived long enough to know people rewrite truth to make their shame comfortable. But I knew what happened, what I gave, what I reclaimed. The truth didn't need to shout. It just needed to stand. Ethan knocked gently. Grandma, you want to see the new railing? I followed him out. He had done well sanded, stained, sealed it against weather. The porch looked like someone cared again. George would have said it leans a little to the left. I smiled. Ethan grinned. So does everyone in this family. I laughed. A real, open laugh that hadn't lived in me for years. I was thinking, he said, wiping his hands. Maybe next spring we could start a little garden out front. Not just flowers, vegetables, herbs, something that grows. I looked at him, not just the boy I tucked in, but the man who chose to show up. That sounds just right. We went inside. Cold biting now. I made soup. He fixed the squeaky cabinet. I showed him the breaker box. He asked about attic insulation. We filled the day with small, necessary things that make a life. Not the kind you take pictures of, but the kind you miss when gone. Part 8. The letter to my younger self. That night after he left, I wrote one more letter. Not for court, not for lawyers, for myself. To the woman I used to be. You tried longer than you should have. Bent yourself into shapes that didn't fit. Spoke gently when you should have stood tall. Gave when you should have said no. But you also loved fiercely. And that is not a mistake. Now you are free. free to dance in kitchens, to plant something just for the pleasure of watching it grow, to say no without guilt, to say yes without fear, to give when it is deserved, not demanded. You are not cruel. You are not bitter. You are clear. And that finally is enough. I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer where I'd kept old family photos. Not to hide it, just to know it was there, like a lighthouse I built myself. Before bed, I stepped outside one last time. Stars sharp, cold deeper now. I looked up at the sky and whispered, he would have been proud, not of the decision, not even of the strength, but of the fact that I finally chose peace. Not loud, not showy, just mine. Part 9, the final words. So here's what I'll leave you with. You who have read this far, you who may have your own silences, your own aching rooms, your own boundaries drawn in invisible ink. Do not wait for someone to hand you peace. Choose it. Do not confuse love with obligation. Do not confuse duty with worth. And if your house is full of noise but no one hears, you make a new kind of quiet. One where you are no longer invisible. One where you do not have to disappear to feel safe. If this story found something true in you, share it. Tell someone. Or just hold it close and know it's never too late to come home to yourself. Subscribe to our channel